In this lesson, we're going to cover a really cool function in Flash action scripting called onEnterFrame. The work file for this one is called onEnterFrame.fla, and it's waiting for you in the work files. That file contains the end result of what we're going to do here, so you can either open that up and have a look, or start your own file from scratch, and then compare it to mine at the end. The onEnterFrame function is located under ActionScript 2.0 classes, then under Movie, Movie Clip, and Event Handlers. onEnterFrame is a special function that is basically just a loop. We created a frame loop in the last lesson, but this one does it automatically. It also does it on only one frame, and on top of that, it's completely independent of anything else your timeline does. Using the onEnterFrame function, your timeline doesn't have to keep looping back and forth, and it doesn't even have to stop and stay on the frame where the onEnterFrame function is located. It will just happily keep looping until that timeline is unloaded from your presentation, or you explicitly delete the onEnterFrame. And this brings up a very important point. Because the onEnterFrame function never disappears, and also because it executes every single frame of your movie, unless you actually delete it, it's always going to be there. Because of this, every time we use one of these functions, we have to follow it up with some housekeeping. When your presentation is finished with the onEnterFrame function, make sure that you script it to delete it, or you run the chance of slowing down your viewer's computer. And another thing, be careful about how many of these things you have running at one time. Flash kind of helps us remember this because we can only attach one onEnterFrame function to any given timeline or object at a time. But we also have the ability to run multiple onEnterFrames by just attaching them to multiple objects. This is fine, but be careful, especially if your onEnterFrame function contains a decent amount of code. Every line of code in every onEnterFrame function will execute on every movie frame. Okay, I'm going to show you how to set up the onEnterFrame now. This is going to be quick because we're actually going to use all of the things we've learned in the last few lessons. We're going to create a rectangle and then convert it to a movie clip and name it, and then we're going to use ActionScript to make it fade in. So draw the rectangle, select it and hit F8, or use the menu to convert it to a movie clip, and we'll give it a name, myRectangle_MC, and hit OK. Now we need to give it an instance name. We'll just make this rectangle. Now we'll move this up here closer to the center, and we can add an onEnterFrame function to frame 1 of our timeline. We don't have to run this on this particular frame. Of course, we can actually attach it to other things, like this movie clip. All we have to do for that is put a target path in first. But I'm going to add it to this frame. Okay, double-click the onEnterFrame action. Now remember that part of a target that uses that word "this." In most of Flash, it's not a problem if you don't use it, but the onEnterFrame function has to be applied to something. So in this case, I'm going to drop in this, and that will apply this function to frame 1. Okay, the actions that we want to keep repeating as long as this is running go inside the curly brackets, as per normal.